Deserves an applause.
Yes.
Yes.
I see you've pulled Ken Knuckles out of retirement.
They're
Did
not
they even
letting
let
him
you retire?
Just when I thought I was out.
It's the price of
Never,
being good.
Ken, never.
Never. So we're excited to hear about your plans this morning. Let me introduce my colleagues on the SIAT, some of whom you know, I guess all of whom you know. But starting on the end here, Assemblywoman Helene Weinstein is joining us. Sabrina T. from the Environmental Facilities Corporation, EFC, I should just say that.
Yes, you should.
Commissioner Reardon, Department of Labor, and Commissioner Rowan DeStito, OGS, as well as Brian Stratton from Canals. Are there any canals in New York City?
Gowanus.
If not, we can always make one.
Okay, we can always make
Gowanus.
Gowanus, that's right.
Gowanus.
Go on.
It's not
So
a
we're super
navigation
excited.
No,
We
I
started
know.
with Mid-Hudson, and they raised the bar, and it is Friday, so we expect to be wowed. Welcome. You know, you have 45 minutes for your presentation, and then we will hopefully ask some clarifying and intelligent questions. You're on.
Now you've raised the
Well,
bar.
well, good morning to the, I'm Winston Fisher.
Is this
Co-
near you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it was on. It's not. Doesn't seem to be on.
It doesn't
Okay.
seem,
We
I don't
need a
know.
microphone.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Don't worry, it'll find you.
It'll find you.
Okay, all right. Well, again, I'm Winston Fisher. Good morning. On behalf of the New York City Regional Economic Development Council, we'd like to thank you, the members of the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team, for your review of our progress to date and plans for 2019. I'd also like to thank the New York Power Authority for hosting this event today.
And I'm Cheryl Moore. Joining us for the presentation today are three council members, Kinda Eunice, Catherine Wild, and Ken Knuckles. And we're also honored to have with us Sayir Loneal, who's president of the Dumbo Improvement District Board of Directors, who's here to discuss our downtown revitalization initiative in downtown Brooklyn. And also David Garza, Executive Director of Henry Street Settlement. He will discuss Henry Street's new Neighborhood Resource Center, which is a priority project that's being supported by a $1 million ESD grant from Round 6.
So New York City's economy continues to grow, maintaining its position as the largest and most diverse in the nation. The strength of the economy is evident across a wide variety of measures, with economic output up 34% since 2011 and unemployment at a historic low of 4.2%. Nevertheless, there are fiscal and economic challenges that threaten the continued vitality of the city, including substantial public investment needed to expand and modernize the region's infrastructure, the risk of displacement of current lower and middle income residents in developing areas of the city, and the need for public subsidies to protect these residents with more affordable housing and community development. And last, the elimination of state and local tax deductibility, which will add to the already high cost of living in the city, and it will make it less competitive of attracting jobs and talent in the future. With this in mind, our council has developed a strategic plan and priorities for project selection that focus on delivering resources to communities most in need. We continue to support the expansion of commercial activity, job creation, workforce development, and affordable housing. Today, our panel will present a brief summary of our progress in rounds 1 through 7 and our priorities in the coming year. Cheryl will open up with a summary of the progress report.
In support of Governor Cuomo's 2018 priorities, our council has continued its efforts to promote the CFA process and encourage applications from across New York City. We worked with representatives from life science companies, workforce development groups, universities, state and local elected officials, early stage businesses and incubators, tourism and cultural organizations, and other nonprofits to spread the word and build a robust project pipeline. This year we held CFA workshops in Long Island City, in Manhattan, and an information session in Far Rockaway, Queens, which was the first time that we had done outreach in that region. We also held a public forum in July to showcase possible priority projects. And our efforts are paying dividends. The REDC received a total of 271 finalized applications, including 92 from applicants participating in the CFA process for the first time. In addition, we received 127 applications supporting workforce development and 115 with an interest in supporting veterans. Over the first 7 rounds of the REDC initiative, the New York City region has been awarded just over $465 million to assist 609 projects. 83% of our awarded projects are either complete or on schedule. These represent a total investment of over $3.5 billion in private and other investment, or a leverage ratio of state grants and tax credits of nearly 14-to-1. Most importantly, these projects will create and retain over 34,000 permanent jobs. If we look only at our priority projects, 81% are either complete or on schedule and represent a total investment of nearly $2.7 billion in private and other public investment, which leverages state funding at a 23-to-1 ratio. I'm now pleased to turn it over to Kinda Yonis, who will provide a progress report on a few of the Round 7 priority projects and report on Rounds 1 and 2 of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. These projects demonstrate our region's efforts to advance the governor's priorities.
Great, so I will now update you on select priority projects as well as DRI Rounds 1 and 2. So first, Cambridge Biolabs. Cambridge Biolabs developed and helped develop the life sciences cluster in the Boston-Cambridge area and is now expanding to New York City. After a long search for suitable space, Biolabs announced earlier this year that it was open for business in partnership with NYU Langone, the medical center, providing top-of-the-line research equipment and business support to help companies reach their milestones faster. The 50,000 square foot facility, located in Lower Manhattan, is designed to house up to 35 startups. The project received a $2 million ESD grant in Round 5 to finance renovations, and an additional 100,000 ESD grant in Round 7 for the build-out of a big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning center at the facility. The project is expected to be complete in 2019. A second priority project is Drive Change. Drive Change is a nonprofit organization that runs a paid year-long fellowship on a food truck for previously incarcerated adults. The fellowship includes skills training, permanent job placement, and support services. Drive Change is building the Commissary for Social Justice, a facility where food trucks owners can prep food, store goods, clean and park their trucks. The project will allow Drive Change to increase its fellows from 8 per year to 48 per year, as well as create 18 jobs and retain 7 existing jobs. The project was awarded a $700,000 ESD capital grant in Round 7. A third priority project involves the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The Brooklyn Navy Yard will upgrade an existing structure on its 300-acre property to offer a modern food manufacturing and shared kitchen space facility for rental to small food businesses. This $12 million upgrade will include architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection and alarms, and vertical transportation improvements, as well as kitchen and food manufacturing build-out to meet food manufacturing standards. The project was awarded a $1.4 million ESD grant in Round 7, and the project will result in 500 new jobs. I will now provide a brief overview of DRI 1. In 2016, Downtown Jamaica was selected as the winner of the $10 million DRI Round 1 award in New York City. And a year later, after a 6-month public planning process, Lieutenant Governor Hochul announced funding for 7 catalytic projects designed to do 3 things. 1, activate key gateways into Jamaica. That includes a pedestrian plaza and entryways between the Long Island Railroad tracks and York College. 2, promote local entrepreneurship and career development. That includes a 10,000 square foot co-working space and job training programs. And 3, expand broadband access for area residents, businesses, and visitors. These 7 projects are expected to leverage up to $8 million in other funding and create over 30 new businesses. These projects are underway and they're currently being overseen by ESD, HCR, and DOS. The Office of the Queensborough President is also assisting in monitoring project implementation. Thank you, Cheryl. To conclude my part of the presentation, I will now speak about DRI-2. In 2017, an area of the South Bronx, known as the Bronx Civic Center, was selected as the winner of the $10 million DRI Round 2 award. The area is bounded by 139th Street and 3rd Avenue to the south, St. Anne's Avenue to the east, 165th Street and McClellan to the north, and the Harlem River to the west. The area encompasses several distinct commercial, civic, and recreational districts, including Hostos Community College, Lincoln Hospital, The Hub, which is a historic retail cluster, the Bronx County Courthouses and government buildings, Yankee Stadium, and Melrose Commons, which is a more than 3,000-unit community planned renewal area. After a 6-month planning and engagement process and the development of the Bronx Civic Center Strategic Investment Plan, Governor Cuomo announced in July that 12 competitive projects were selected to be funded, and they will accomplish 3 main objectives. Number 1, draw on the South Bronx's proud history as a culture.
Okay.
That was exciting.
Wow. Woke me up.
Hot mic.
I'll continue with that.
We need one of those tech people.
Why don't we just go on?
Yes. So draw on the South Bronx's history as a cultural, educational, retail, and employment hub to develop a unified downtown, beautify also the streetscapes, fund facade and storefront improvements, and activate public spaces. The second objective is to enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors through support of cultural, artist, and recreational spaces. And the third objective is to expand low-cost broadband access in Melrose Commons. And that includes free Wi-Fi in and around select public spaces to support economic growth and opportunity. These 12 projects are now in the agency contracting phase and will be overseen by ESD, Ag and Markets, HCR, and DOS.
Great. Can you hear us all right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kinda. We'll next hear from Catherine Wild from the Partnership for New York City, who will present New York City's vision for life sciences and workforce development.
Thank you. I think you may recall that less than 2 years ago, Governor Cuomo announced a major New York State commitment to life sciences, and that was followed by Mayor de Blasio announcing that New York City would double down. And the combination of their commitments has resulted in a truly amazing rapid development of a new industry cluster in New York that's not just impacting New York City, but is having an effect beyond our region through Long Island, Westchester, and around New York State. So we are very excited about the tremendous progress that's been made in life sciences. In June, Johnson & Johnson came over and opened their 5th JLab facility, which does now actually house a number of companies that will be sort of scientists doing startup companies. So we're having our first commercial incubators. Kinda mentioned the Cambridge Labs facility that's cohabiting with NYU. That's also a commercial lab facility. So we're beginning to go beyond the academia that New York has been great at for decades and moving that into commercial activity where we're generating thousands of jobs and hundreds of new companies, which is very exciting, and this is something that we continue to promote. There are also signs that this activity in life sciences is not just going to be the Manhattan Medical Corridor. We're seeing this develop in Long Island City, which just completed a study of life science activity in that set of neighborhoods, and in the Bronx, where the Hutchison Park, the old Bronx Psychiatric Center, is another opportunity. In fact, it's right next to Albert Einstein Hospital, which is a major research center. Montefiore has taken over that facility, and they're working with the state and with the developers at Hutchison Park. That's also the location of the new Metro North station that's planned for development by the MTA. So these pieces coming together really will create a whole new hub for the Bronx, where they're going from, historically, their strength is a nonprofit healthcare industry, which we appreciate, but now they're going to have an opportunity to also have a business side of that relationship as that develops. So there's a lot going on in life sciences that we're excited about. We have a couple of projects that are recommended in the in this new application. Mount Sinai is talking about planning a 13-story building in East Harlem that will be dry lab facilities and be a combination of research, commercial, and what's called translational activity, which is a center for data science and technology in the medical field. There's a company that we had previously funded called Cressalon, which is a new rapidly growing life science company in the city. 143 new jobs and 48 retained jobs. And then there's a company called Nanotronics, which is another New York City startup that came out of the Brooklyn Navy Yard and is now dramatically expanding there. And they they're on the medical equipment side, making industrial microscopes and other devices powered by artificial intelligence, which I don't understand, but which is the new thing. So anyhow, we're really excited. We've had great success. There's been great interregional collaboration on the life science efforts, and we really see this as a win-win for the state and one that is going to continue to develop. The second area that I was going to talk about is workforce development. The announcement by the governor that there's a plan to create an Office of Workforce Development this year in the governor's office, and to really put a focus on bringing together all the disparate state workforce development efforts. Our frustration in workforce development is it's so fragmented, and things don't scale because there's all this energy going in all different directions. And this is true not just for the nonprofits and for the government agencies, but for the employers that they're just, everything is kind of out there. Nobody kind of knows what everybody else is doing. And we're hoping that the Office of Workforce Development will really be an opportunity to help us organize our region and then organize interregionally and with the state agencies. So we think this is a very important initiative and one that we certainly want to support. In our report and applications, we highlight some of the strong workforce development initiatives that are going on both in the city and that we hope will be expanded with the new grant application. There are, for example, efforts in the fashion industry, preparing young people for jobs in the I'm looking at that, it's not the same as this, but in working with CUNY on apprenticeship programs and pre-apprenticeship programs, beginning to really push that area of skills development. One of the projects that's submitted this year for the program is Great for Performances, a woman-owned catering and food service firm that has a major training program that's moving from many years in Lower Manhattan to the Bronx, and with that expanding her facilities, and particularly the training facilities, catering, training, and it's a major project, almost $5 million. That is a significant event in the skills development area. Food service and food preparation is one of our really big areas. We've got another program with Hot Bread Kitchen, which does a tremendous job in training women, particularly immigrant women, and now is expanding, hopefully with support this year. We'll be expanding their efforts. We have a program called Exalt Youth we've put in this year, which started out small in terms of providing internships in technology for court-involved youth, and is now going to triple in size and really blow out a major program. So we're seeing that grow. Covenant House, which you probably are familiar with, a long-standing institution for dealing with homeless, runaway, and trafficked young people, is building a new building, and in that including a major program for skills development, training, and support for these young people. SUNY Maritime College, which is in the Bronx, is developing a seamanship training center, and believe it or not, this isn't an old-fashioned thing. This is really, we have a great need for expanding training and train people for the maritime industries, and the SUNY facility is one of the key places where that can happen, and so we're supporting them. And then Coalition for Queens, which is a group that has received support, philanthropic and state support over the years in, again, preparing adults for technology careers and helping them move from very marginal retail jobs into strong middle income jobs, and that's another program that's scaling up. I'm trying to see if we're recommending. We've got training program for veterans, Pathfinder Labs, which we're recommending for funding this year. We've got refunding recommendation for the Greenwood Cemetery's masonry program that you may remember, which is practical and terrific project in Sunset Park. A electrical skills construction program at LaGuardia Community College, and I will tell you that the construction trades, we have such a deficit in availability of people. Our big frustration in getting stuff done and the high cost of construction has to do with not having enough skilled people, and that's something that, this is only the beginning of something we think should be scaled up on a much more significant basis. And a number of other programs, including healthcare rehabilitation. So that's what we're doing in terms of the workforce area, and as I say, we're really excited to bring all these small pieces together in an organized, coordinated way under the state's leadership. And now, am I back to you?
Yep, thanks, Kathy. As you can see, there are a lot of really innovative programs that we'd love your support on. I'd now like to ask Ken Knuckles to report on our other 2018 priority projects.
Thank you, Cheryl, and good morning.
Good morning, Ken.
In addition to the life sciences and workforce development projects that Kathy just listed, we are also excited about a number of other 2018 priority projects, starting with the NYU Tandon School of Engineering is leading a partnership with Columbia University, the New School, and CUNY to develop an augmented reality and virtual reality center at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The AR/VR lab will provide a learning environment as well as workspace, equipment, early stage capital, mentors, and access to investors for startups. The facility will also be used as a community outreach and educational resource. The $3.5 million project will result in 8 new jobs and 25 construction jobs. And did we have a groundbreaking yesterday on that? Wednesday. So it's really happening. Also, there is the South Conduit Terminal Logistics Facility near JFK, which is a 350,000 square foot vertical multi-tenant air cargo and small business storage facility. The facility will enable new and existing air carriers to increase cargo-related activity in the region. The project will result in 100 new jobs. In Manhattan, the New York Historical Society is converting 5,000 square feet in its building to accommodate a new Equality and Justice for All exhibit, which will be New York City's first permanent museum exhibition on American slavery, the abolitionist movement, Jim Crow, and the contemporary civil rights movement. The gallery will also support workforce training programs for teenagers and help prepare permanent residents to become citizens. The Studio Museum on West 125th Street in Harlem, which features the work of African American artists, is planning to construct a new $133 million building on the current museum site. The new facility will provide Harlem residents access to free public space, upgrade educational technology for the neighborhood's students and residents, and also expand the museum's Artist in Residence program. This project will result in 33 new jobs. To conclude this discussion on our 2018 priority projects, I'd like to note that our progress report recommends 14 priority projects from ESD's Capital Fund to advance the state's and our region's growth objectives. These 14 projects represent a total proposed state investment of more than $20 million, leveraging over $489 million in private and other funding at an overall investment ratio of 24-1. Collectively, these projects will support the creation of 1,000 new full-time jobs, over 4,500 indirect jobs, 1,300 construction jobs, and the retention of 850 existing jobs. Finally, on the DRI initiative, round 3, Downtown Revitalization Initiative, we are pleased with the designation of downtown Brooklyn for round 3. The REDC conducted a wide-ranging outreach and nomination process to solicit applications for the DRI. 4 of the borough president offices worked with community boards, universities, local business improvement districts, and local economic development organizations to identify candidate downtown locations, resulting in the presentation of 6 DRI applications, which are as follows: downtown Brooklyn, Broadway Junction, which is in East New York, the East New York section of Brooklyn, Long Island City, downtown Flushing, Queens, East Harlem in Upper Manhattan, and downtown Staten Island. All of these submissions were competitive and well thought out concepts, and after careful review by our DRI committee, the REDC Executive Committee decided to nominate the downtown Brooklyn submission for the DRI designation.
Thank you, Ken. I'll now ask Sayer Loneal to present the exciting vision for downtown Brooklyn.
Hi, my name's Sayer Loneal. I'm with the NYU Tandon School of Engineering, but today I'm pleased to be here to represent the Dumbo bid and the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. I need to thank Governor Cuomo for the state's continued support of downtown Brooklyn, especially his $10 million commitment to downtown and Dumbo through the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Award. I also want to thank Winston Fisher and Cheryl Moore and the members of the New York City REDC Executive Committee for recommending this project to be a DRI this year and for allowing me to present it to you today. I would be remiss if I didn't also thank Joe Taswell and his team for their continued hard work on behalf of the state, and Borough President Adams for his commitment to Brooklyn. Here you can see the proposed catchment area for this year's DRI in downtown Brooklyn. The DRI study area encompasses greater downtown Brooklyn, including the downtown core, which is the 3rd largest central business district in New York City. Dumbo, an eclectic gateway to Brooklyn with distinct streets, shops, innovative startups, and established Fortune 500 companies. 3 major public housing complexes, Farragut, Whitman, and Ingersoll houses, and the area abutting the Brooklyn Navy Yard, a hub for innovation, invention, and entrepreneurial activity. Using the DRI study resources, we will attempt to tie these communities together to increase linkages that were destroyed by urban renewal, extend entrepreneurial and education opportunities to underserved communities, link cultural, business, and residential districts, and broaden the benefits that downtown Brooklyn has been seeing thanks to the steady rise of the commercial hub to surrounding neighborhoods, while at the same time retaining the unique nature and color of those particular neighborhoods. The key goals of the project will be to increase connectivity, safety, and access through placemaking, allow for existing programs to reach a larger number of people, specifically those in public housing, and the Navy Yard corridor, and help academic institutions that make Brooklyn their home offer enhanced K-12 STEM and workforce development opportunities to residents. Dumbo and downtown Brooklyn have shared in the amazing renaissance that has taken place in Brooklyn, and now it's time to build on that progress to bring more people to the table, ensuring that the innovation bubble never bursts and that the rising tides continue to lift all boats.
Thank you. Our last speaker is David Garza of Henry Street Settlement. He'll provide an update on an innovative workforce development project at an old firehouse in Lower Manhattan. is being converted into Henry Street's new Neighborhood Resource Center. This priority project is receiving $1 million in ESD grant assistance awarded in round 6.
Thank you so much. My name is David Garza. I'm the Executive Director of the Henry Street Settlement. And I guess if this presentation was kind of a Google push-in, I would be the point where the rubber hits the road in a community. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank everybody kind of on the way to a community and a neighborhood like the Lower East Side that we serve. So I want to thank the SIAT for hearing today's presentations, the Regional Economic Development Committee, of course, Joe Taswell and his team. And we're very fortunate and grateful to be a grant recipient in the Empire State Development Grant Program. I'm here to represent Henry Street Settlement, and particularly to do so on our 125th birthday. We were founded in 1893 by Lillian Wald. I brought Flat Lillian with me on the occasion of our 125th birthday. We traveled with Flat Lillian to kind of raise awareness to what an extraordinary contributor she was. At 26 years old, she founded Henry Street Settlement, which started the Visiting Nurse Service. She advocated for the first playground in New York City. Hashtag Flat Lillian. She advocated for the for the first playground in New York City. She started the Visiting Nurse Service. And she also, in many ways, to bring us to the reason we're here today, opened up probably one of the first workforce development programs that was sector-based. She would give sewing classes to residents of the community and then give them jobs sewing buttons on the nurses' uniforms. So a very direct and pragmatic connection to labor market need way back in 1893. So I'm excited to be here on our 125th birthday. One thing we know after all these years is that place matters, and the support we've received has been transformative in helping us reinforce that acknowledgement and that model that place works. On some days, our mission is daunting, and on other days, it's inspiring because the issues that we face on the Lower East Side are largely those similar to that when we were founded at the turn of the century, when the Lower East Side was arguably the most densely populated neighborhood on the planet. Today, access to quality health care, housing, education, employment, equity, social justice, and access to vital services are more present and more necessary than ever. And our approach to the work has remained remarkably consistent. We believe that place-based services and proximity to those we serve is critical. In fact, we've literally settled into the community for the last 125 years to better understand the needs with agility, compassion, and effectiveness. On the occasion of our 125th, in addition to remaining an authentically place-based community organization, there are other aspects of our organizational DNA that we embrace in order to move forward. We like to say that Henry Street is humanity at its best self. We provide practical and vital services on a day-to-day basis, but we also advocate for structural change. And that combination of activity and advocacy is formidable. We remain pragmatic in a really profound way. Mentioned some of the examples where we've gone from case to cause. The founding of the Visiting Nurse Service was literally brought about by Lillian Wald visiting a woman who had been in distressed childbirth, and the doctor left her because she couldn't pay the bill. That case resonated with Lillian Wald so deeply that she knew that committing to public health would need to be her calling and her mission, and that's why she settled on the Lower East Side. Many, many times over the course of our history, case to cause has been applied, and we look to embrace that as part of our vision for the work, which remains innovative, inclusive, and integrated. And I'll refer to our most recent example of case to cause, the Lower East Side Employment Network, in just a couple of moments. So over the years, we've continued to respond with that pragmatic notion of delivering services and meeting people where they are. Our present is a dizzying constellation of services. We serve 50,000 people on the Lower East Side today. We operate daycare for 2s, 3s, and 4-year-olds. We have middle school for K through 6. We have a middle school success program, a college success program, workforce development programs, English as a second language, adult basic education, a neighborhood resource center, a senior center, a naturally occurring retirement community. We do Meals on Wheels. We have an art center where we have residencies, we teach classes, and we present work. We have 4 residential shelters, 2 supportive housing units, a primary health care facility, a behavioral health facility, and our neighborhood resource center, which you'll hear more about. So The fact of the matter is we've evolved to meet every need that could happen for an individual or a family, and we try to do so from birth to seniors. So we have worked with pregnant moms, and we worked with 102-year-old seniors. The Lower East Side today, and this vast spectrum of vital services that we provide, is needed more than ever. You can see that we look at the Lower East Side more intimately. That's a map of Community District 3, but because of our proximity, we know there's 3 different stories being told on Lower East Side. You have the East Village in the upper left-hand corner, and then you have Lower East Side, which is basically down along the waterfront, and then you have Chinatown. That map is by census tract, and you can look at average median income by census tract. Top left-hand corner, you have an average median income of approximately $120,000. If you just go directly east, you'll find average median incomes of $23,000, as low as $15,000 in some census tracts. Though that map also indicates where Henry Street programs are. You can see that the different clusters represent our health and wellness programs, our education and employment programs, our transitional and supportive housing programs, our arts program. That dot to the left is our Workforce Development Center, and the reason we put it there is because it is in the commercial epicenter of the neighborhood, and that is getting increasingly developed as a result of the Seward Park Urban Renewal project that's happening on Delancey Street. What the Lower East Side looks like for the people that live there. We are in the top 5 of all these categories: population density, units of public housing. We're number 2 in income disparity, which we're not necessarily proud of. We are the 5th highest in racial diversity. But then, as was indicated on the preceding map, there are stories beneath the stories. So some census tracts have up to 50% poverty. 36% of our population is foreign born, and 45% hold a high school diploma or less as their highest level of educational attainment. Of all the solutions we put forth to these issues and these circumstances for our residents, our efforts in workforce development we are particularly proud of. We have a workforce development center on the corner of Essex and Delancey. We serve 1,500 job seekers a year, placing 650 of them into meaningful employment opportunities. We also operate a summer youth employment for 1,200 youth every year. And with the people that come to our doors that don't necessarily end up in job placement, we make sure they get connected to the Henry Street service that's most appropriate for them, whether that's related to housing, substance abuse, childcare, or any other program that helps them get work ready. With adult and youth unemployment on Lower East Side considerably higher than the rest of the city at large, we look to keep our doors wide open to the job seekers that need us most, but we also look to keep our door wide open to the employers that need us most. And as Kathy mentioned before, the New York City workforce development system is very frenetic, and it's fragmented, and it's hard for job seekers to find their way, and it's hard for employers to find their way. One of the efforts that we're most proud of is that we founded the Lower East Side Employment Network, which is 7 community-based organizations working together on the Lower East Side to create a single point of access for the employers that are looking for talent there. And increasingly we look to invest in that because we feel it's a unique model, and it provides us not only with that single point of access for employers, but it has an agility to respond to labor market need by leveraging the capacity of the 7 organizations that make up the network. So we're particularly proud of that these days. To get to the project that we're here today to discuss, we are fortunate enough to be, and if you remember the first slide, the Henry Street buildings are to the left. This firehouse has been to the next contiguous building. It was built in 1830. It once was the office for Boss Tweed. At a time when affluence characterized the Lower East Side, you can see that the architecture and the stature of the homes there were considerably high, but in the vacuum that was created, that was filled by the waves of immigration. This building has stood as a firehouse since the early 1800s, when volunteer fire departments were the definition of how the city would respond to crises. In 1854, it became part of the more formalized firefighting system, and it has stayed in operation most recently as Engine 15, and its last service call was 9/11. We're located just a few blocks from the World Trade Center if you go directly west from us. And although 9/11 wasn't the direct cause of its closure, the reconsolidation of fire companies and engine companies and ladder companies post 9/11 had this engine company move up the block on Pitt Street, and the building was open, was rather closed in 2002. So Henry Street led an advocacy effort that firehouses that were no longer used as firehouses go to first consideration as community use, and we've had our hearts and our eyes on it since 2002. Approximately 2 years ago, we ended up purchasing it from the city for $1 and put ourselves in a unique position to add another door to Henry Street Settlement's site offerings, and not only adding a door, but a door that could literally be opened wide for the community that needs our support. So this transformative grant that we've received from the Empire State Development Grant Program will help contribute to the $5 million that's required to repurpose the site. We are under construction right now. We've completed shoring, we've completed remediation, we've completed the shell out, and right now we are putting floors and an elevator in there, and it will represent and provide for the community that we serve a community center. It'll be called the Dale Jones Birch Community Center because we had one of our board members who was fortunate enough to help make up that difference in funding. So the project is fully funded. The project is underway. And in addition to providing general walk-in counseling services, it will be another point of access for the job seekers that would benefit from accessing our workforce development services. It'll also be a single stop and provide income supports, financial counseling, eviction prevention services, legal services, suicide prevention, benefit screenings, health insurance enrollment, and parenting classes. So it will truly be a one-stop shop for job seekers on the Lower East Side and represent geographically a spot that they can access more meaningfully than our Workforce Development Center, which is presently in the more commercial epicenter of the neighborhood. So we're grateful for the state and to the council for making this vital work possible. And this concludes my piece of the presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, David. In closing, over the past 7 years, the New York City REDC has built broad consensus around the strategies, priorities, and values that will make our city stronger, more vibrant, and more inclusive. New York City is the state's primary economic engine, attracting talent and investment from around the world. The city's continued success is critical not only to the state's economic health, but also to the global economic clout of the entire country. We've embraced the innovation economy while also seeking to ensure that economically distressed communities have an opportunity to participate in it.
Our focus on key projects that will spur job creation and economic development has included serious attention to advancing the Governor's Life Science Initiative and our Regional Cluster Plan, addressing the skills gap issue and implementing our opportunity agenda through workforce development, supporting downtown revitalization plans, promoting sustainability, engaging local government, and creating new economic development opportunities for low-income communities and veterans. Moving smart economic development projects forward and ensuring that all New Yorkers are prepared to participate in a growing and changing economy are the key objectives of the REDC initiative. Our council is energized and committed to ensuring that all these objectives are met. As a council, we work to implement the governor's vision for economic development in New York City. We're proud of our accomplishments and hope to be named a top performer this year. Thank you, and we look forward to any questions.
Good, thank you. Good presentation. I have to say that although other regions are big geographically, bigger, you guys have covered a lot of ground, across the city, and that is impressive. So I'm going to start the questions with Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. My city, I love it, and you're doing great things there. It's really exciting to see the spread of your work across all the boroughs. Because that, everybody thinks of, not everybody, lots of people who don't live in New York City think that New York City is Fifth Avenue or the part of Manhattan that they've visited. And they don't understand how big the city is, how complex it is, how many villages are in the city. And I think that's part of the thing that the city itself struggles with, that it's not homogeneous, That is a great strength in my eyes, but it makes it a difficult animal to wrestle to the ground. Of course, I'm all things workforce development. Thank you for the Henry Street presentation. You do amazing work, and I'd love to come and sit and talk with you specifically about some of them because, and as Kathy said, the workforce, the ability to access workforce is not as easy as we would like. And so we are all focused on making it as available to everybody as possible. And often people leave out the business owner as part of that equation. We always think about the worker, but of course the worker's got to work somewhere. So the employer is really a critical piece of this. And you've made some really interesting, innovative approaches. Interesting training programs. I know a lot of people who work for Great Performances, and I knew that they were moving. I didn't realize that they were doing training in the new facility. That is really an exciting opportunity. And I would love to talk more about Exalt Youth because I've never heard of that program, but it sounds really interesting. And also Coalition for Queens, the idea of preparing adults to go into, am I correct, to go into the tech industry? That is huge. And one of the conversations we have is that, the tech industry is the future. How do we prepare people for that? And we often look at young people because that's obvious, but preparing adults to transition into it is also really important. New York City has, microphone's off, I'm sure that doesn't help. New York City has a significant problem in underemployment for youth, the 16 to 24-year-olds. It's a really big problem. It's a big problem everywhere, but in New York City, it is a deep and abiding problem, unfortunately. And I know some of these workforce development programs aim directly at them, but talk to me some more about specifically what strategies are you employing to reach those youth and get them engaged? Because once they leave school, in whatever fashion they leave, and often it's not good, then they're just out there, and it's very hard to connect. So are there specific strategies to reach that particular unemployment sector?
I think the primary strategy is the reconciliation of our world of workforce development with our world of education and the attempts to integrate those. And so we've got a lot going on between the Department of Education, CUNY, industry sector employer groups, and the nonprofit intermediaries that work both with young people in the schools but also outside the schools. Programs like Per Scholas, for example, where we're trying to bring these pieces together because for too long we've had sort of workforce development for those that are out of the system, training primarily for lower skilled positions. If we write off lifelong education, they're not going to ever have living wage sustainable employment. So that's what we see big picture, and we're trying to get all the different players to participate in that through our initiatives and working with the city and Department of Education.
And I think that's accurate. I think where that extends is in initiatives like Summer Youth Employment Program. In the next iteration of the RFP, there will be an in-school component, and so that kind of proximity between the two systems of workforce development and the education system is critical. And in addition to that element, there is I think it is alarming that the number of out-of-school youth in New York City in particular has hovered, between 160 and 170,000. And I think community-based organizations like Henry Street and many of our colleagues and peers are fortunate that there are a number of initiatives that can be leveraged to work with one another. So, for example, Summer Youth Employment Program, there's a program called Intern and Learn, Earn and Learn, and when an organization like a Henry Street can get multiple opportunities and then have other, sometimes the system gives you bricks and then other funding streams give you mortar, and together you can build something really effective. So there's another initiative out right now, and the Manhattan District Attorney has an extraordinary amount of money, $900 million, that they have used as part of a criminal justice initiative, and it's hitting the street in the form of youth opportunity hubs. And so when you take some of the resources and work of the workforce development system and of the education system and then of the criminal justice system, that resource helps us create a youth opportunity hub and deploy 9 social workers throughout the Lower East Side in different sites with 6 partner organizations to help identify when a young person comes in, how we can connect them to an employment program or an education program or help them get stable so they're ready for any of the above. So I think leveraging resources is critical, and we're fortunate that there's a lot out there to leverage, but I think it's still just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the effort to expose young people while they are still in school to career opportunities is critical, and I hope that that's going on as well in a
Yeah, we're doing that as well, exposing young people that are in school to areas like advanced manufacturing and sort of, re-explaining to them what manufacturing is, because a lot of times they have this
they think it's old and dirty.
misperception. Exactly, it's dirty, it doesn't pay well. And so we have a lot of programs and apprenticeships actually to expose these kids to what's available out there and get them to, as you said, learn while they earn. So I think that's very important to them.
Sayar?
I just want to quickly add that the state focus on this has allowed us as recipients in the past, through our Veterans Future Lab, which was a funded project before, to have a location in an area where we've never been as NYU, but we know that there are organizations that are there, like Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, right? So we use people that have boots on the ground to try to get into the community and try to take our programs and be able to get more youth involved in it. So I think the state's focus has really allowed us to say, we know what our lane is, we know what we can do, but let's find partners, because workforce development and youth development, career development is such an important focus on all of these programs that we look outside of what exactly the funding goes towards to create better and bigger programs and create partnerships that we didn't have before.
That's great. Thank you.
Commissioner Zestito. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. This was a great presentation, and I think the fact that you're looking at numerous workforce development programs, I think is very important. I want to focus on veterans, so I'm going to really kind of ask you to expand on. As OGS, one of the other things that we do is we certify service-disabled veteran-owned businesses for involvement in the state contracting system and hopefully allowing those businesses to benefit from what the state actually spends in the community. And we also, as you know, Governor Cuomo has put a high priority on minority and women business enterprises. So these are all small, for the most part, small businesses. How have you worked your priority projects and many of your efforts in that area? Can somebody expand on that?
Well, we were a priority project, and we are open. We got capital funding to open up a Veterans Future Lab in Industry City in Sunset Park. We have been working with Joe and his team as all the businesses. So we basically house startup businesses owned by veterans and their spouses. We want to make sure that they're all registering with to be a veteran-recognized business with the state of New York, providing them the services and the support the state has. But more importantly, it's about mentoring veterans and having them understand that these are the opportunities out there and connecting them to other programs. Because again, we know what our strength is, which is entrepreneurship training in this key focus area. But we also want to connect them with other groups that exist right now. And I think the ESD has been very helpful in that.
Right.
I think the REDC, by putting a focus on veterans issues, has been incredibly helpful on that. But there are a lot of programs throughout the city, and it's just about putting those puzzle pieces together to make sure that we're going to put something and have that work.
And that's what we're concerned about, is that there are a lot of programs, but the individuals in these areas aren't aware of all the programs. And I think that's great what you're doing with your program. So thank you.
I would just say overall, those are, when we look at the lens of what we're trying to recommend to the committee and recommend to the state, those are veterans as top of the list of how can we help veterans, minority women-owned businesses, etc. That this is clearly meant for economic development to constituents, so to speak, that are either harder to reach or have been underserved in the past.
Exactly.
So that is, I think you can see also by the list we put forward.
Yes.
that it is clearly front and center in the way we're scoring, analyzing, and making recommendations.
That's great, because you have a lot of premier projects that the governor has placed in New York, whether it's the airport, all of your major projects. I can't go through the whole list. Major projects. But I think I believe what your focus is to allow the smaller businesses to take part in that commerce.
I would actually say 100%. I think that's sometimes where, yes, there's things like the airport, which really have nothing to do with us.
Right.
In the sense that, so that's not our focus, obviously.
No, it's not your focus.
Right. What
but
we really do care about is when you look at the poverty levels in New York City, that it is alarmingly high. When you look at youth unemployment, it's alarmingly high. And so while people look at New York City and they think Fifth Avenue, the truth is this is a region that has a lot of need. And it is a region that we always stress that sometimes, that you have to look at it through that lens. And all of these programs are going to people and to groups and to organizations that are directly impacting this constituent base, this community. So it is not the large scale stuff. It's really micro, and hopefully to make a difference in places where they're not getting attention.
Correct.
And this council and this money is critical to get to those people. And so the leverage impact in New York is staggering. And so we have the ability to leverage this money like maybe some other places don't. So it is critical that we get every dollar, because otherwise there's so much need here.
I think the other thing is that the consistency of the funding is creating a community, as we're talking about projects that have been funded in previous years. And there's an opportunity as we continue to work the program over the years to connect, right? And to help the programs work with each other and get to know each other. And as we continue to do outreach. So the consistency in the program, I think, is really having a benefit for things like that.
Great. Let's try to get in a couple more questions. We'll go to Assemblywoman.
Thank you, and I very much appreciated the presentation and seeing a little bit more of diversity in terms of reaching beyond Manhattan and having projects, Queens and Brooklyn. Last presentation, I think they were fewer, and perhaps that's a result of the sort of information programs you had. When we're in other regions, we ask where all why the millennials leaving. We know that some of the issues, Lower East Side we know where they've come to, and that has created in a lot of parts of New York, Lower East Side, down parts of Brooklyn, the problem of displacement of long-term residents and lower income residents. And I just wonder what kind of consideration is being looked at to how we can help move forward with economic development but still protect the long-term residents of communities.
Well, we have a very aggressive affordable housing set of initiatives in the city, as you know, and we do everything we can to compete for as many state affordable housing dollars through the CFA process. So that's one piece of it. But it's really, again, it goes back to the workforce education programs, that we will not be able to solve the displacement problem if people don't have the means to earn a living. Because there's only so much affordable housing the city and state can afford, and that's the conundrum. It is inadequate at this point, and obviously what's happening is a tremendous pushback. Unfortunately, it's a negative pushback because people are afraid of losing their homes. So there's an anti-development. There's a lot of fears, and that's effectively what is happening. And I think this year we're going to see in the legislature a serious look at stronger rent protections as a piece of that. And honestly, I don't see very many other directions to go.
And last year, just to follow up, I know there was some discussion about trying to improve transportation to the Navy Yard, with that being really a hub of a lot of the new economic development. It takes folks in my district longer to travel to the Navy Yard than to get into most parts of Manhattan. So I would just hope that as we look forward towards the next round, that we continue to look at the transportation issue, especially with the L line, the impact the closing of the L line will have, and also maybe think about Southern Brooklyn as we look at projects, particularly some of the workforce training programs, if we can try and bring some programs close to where there are neighborhoods that really could use them because of the difficulty of transportation.
Absolutely. I also think that the DRI this year will help with that, just making things more accessible in that particular area.
And the thing I'll add is someone who's I'm not necessarily on the on the council as a provider. One of the things that's happening, and I think it's a real credit for the state and the Red Sea working together, not only through the Office of Workforce Development that Kathy mentioned before, but there are a lot of aggregators and hubs and intermediaries working. So the Office of Workforce Development has helped launch a hub. It's called the Workforce Hub in New York City, and that combined with the New York City Employment and Training Coalition, combined with the Workforce Funders Group, has really helped us share resources in a way that is bringing to the fore issues like neighborhood affordability, because neighborhood affordability, as it's being defined and looked at by all these groups, is really workforce development, economic development, and housing. And the more aggregation and the more work of these groups working together, it's putting that neighborhood affordability factor under a different lens. And so that's a real credit to some of the convening that Office of Work Dev is doing around these issues.
Sabrina.
Sure. So Henry Street, I mean, I've been familiar with it for a long time. You guys do amazing work. It's really amazing to me also how you're definitely one of these, organizations that continues to evolve and continues to look towards the future as far as trying to address the needs that sort of keep coming up, your sort of case to cause conversation. So I was just wondering from your perspective, because for lack of a better term, you're the ones that are on the front lines of everything. You see things before, I think, the rest of the world sees it. What would you see as sort of the most newly emerging cases that, and the types of things that we would need to address and think about going forward?
Well, I think it's this issue that we just discussed, neighborhood affordability. I think when you have the intensity of issues that are generated around income disparity, you get a lot of fear, you get a lot of anxiety, you get that anti-development mentality that's pervasive. But the impact that it has on families is varied because, number one, it's about access to economic development and to workforce. But it also has behavioral health impact. There's acute frequency of depression, of anxiety. And so we are doing our best to kind of play the middle like we do. So the example that I gave of the Lower East Side Employment Network, there are 3,000 jobs that are estimated they're going to be created on the Lower East Side as the result of what's happening on South Street, what's happening on Delancey Street, and what's happening in the immediate area. And so our convening of the 8 organizations that make up the Lower East Side Employment Network not only bring to bear the connectivity to workforce development, and I think it's unique because we have a 3-way MOU with the developer and with the Economic Development Corporation, but bringing those 8 organizations on that very focused objective of connecting people to work also brings, we have an Article 31 behavioral health clinic. We have those 9 social workers that I referred to before. You have Hamilton Madison House that has, extensive experience in working with seniors. And so when you bring organizations like settlement houses, and I understand I'm a little biased, but the fact of the matter is we bring all these other resources to the workforce development platform, and then people can access substance abuse, childcare, and all these other things. So the case is, and I have to also say that as much as we like to think New York City is unique, we're not. I mean, I think this is happening in San Francisco in really articulated ways. It's happening in other cities in the country, and but that's what we're seeing on the ground. The need to not only provide people with the education and the information and the training to connect to living wage jobs, but then also tend to all the other, and I wouldn't even call them secondary, all the other additional elements that are around behavioral health and kind of managing a family effectively in areas that are this intense in terms of the obstacles that people are facing.
Great question.
I
Brian,
can.
Brian.
We
I
have
can.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Co-chairs and members of the Regional Council, thank you for that report. That was great. My question goes to venture capital and federal funding in the New York City region and in your area for life sciences. Can you expand upon why New York has only attracted a small percentage of National Institutes of Health federal funding in comparison to states like California, New Jersey, and Massachusetts? And are there practices that you can learn from, or things that we can do to increase federal funding opportunities for and venture capital in the life sciences area?
Do you want to go ahead? I'll follow up. You go ahead.
Basically, New York has been a center of academia as opposed to business development in the life science areas. And so we have not historically, and that's what's really turned around now, we have not historically attracted venture capital because we haven't been looking for it. We haven't been asking our scientists to be entrepreneurs. We've wanted them to stay in the lab, and thank you, the university will sell your patent and your business will develop elsewhere. So we're just now beginning to have, we still don't have early stage venture capital, much of it here in life sciences. We're just beginning to get it through these incubators. The first one, Cambridge Biolabs, brings venture capital with them from Boston with their incubator. We've got 3 or 4 others that we're bringing in, but it's got to grow organically, and it's not going to happen instantly. It takes some time. If the venture capital stays somewhere else, they're going to take the business with them, and increasingly they take the scientists too. Sure.
Yeah, and I think, as Kathy says, these incubators are really going to make a difference. J Labs, which was funded by the state, is going to make a tremendous difference as well, because they're not just providing the space, which is critical and which didn't previously exist, but they're also providing training, nurturing, connections, introductions, and an opportunity to work together.
And access to venture capital.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all those things are doing what we need to do, which is to grow the ecosystem. The business community is truly coming together around this, saying, how can we support this better? There are many life sciences groups of organizations that are trying to get companies going to help nurture those new executives so that we can build our own stable of senior leaders in the life sciences. And that will continue to attract the venture capital funding. So in the 3 years that I've been in New York, I've really seen a dramatic difference in the energy around the life sciences. It's palpable, and people coming in are saying, gosh, I didn't know there was that much going on in life sciences, but I really feel something different now. So it feels like it's really shifting.
Very good answers. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
So I want to thank you. I want to say that, as you know, I've been in Westchester for 21 years, but I was made in New York City. I was born and raised there, and I feel Commissioner DeStito and I were remarking that you really have put a bulk of your efforts into people, as opposed to infrastructure, which New York City's lucky, to have.
We got plenty of that.
But you do have that. But we feel like you've hit all the right marks in terms of investing in the people, the workforce, the communities, and so I want to congratulate you for that. I'm super proud of this region, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.